Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Virtual MOSI. My name is Catherine. Have you ever noticed that at certain times of the year, you can maybe play outside until 8 or 9 o'clock, but then at other times of the year, it gets dark by like 5 or 6? And of course, that's all because of seasons. We talked a little bit about it in our videos last week. But did you know that plants notice that as well? Here in Florida, we live north of the equator, but kind of close. Here's the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. So this area right here is what we refer to as the tropics, and Florida is just above it in what we call the subtropics. So our plants here in Florida have a little bit different reaction to the seasons than plants in, say, northern states like maybe Alaska. So what tells plants that the seasons have changed, do you think? Is it the heat maybe? Well, actually, it's light. Plants have a special chemical inside their cells that let them determine how much light they are receiving. Because, as you know, if you've listened to Mr. Ian's video on photosynthesis, plants use sunlight to make food. And we have the equation as a quick reminder for you right here. Plants take in carbon dioxide, and they take in water, and through sunlight giving them energy, they're able to undergo a process called photosynthesis. So with the energy from the sun, they can take that carbon dioxide and water and create sugars, specifically glucose, that they can use for energy. And then they release oxygen as a byproduct, which of course we need to breathe. So plants are super important to the base of our food chain, and there's a couple different stimuli that affects how well they grow. One being, of course, light, but then also heat and water. So let's talk about light a little bit first. I've got a fun science activity you can do at home. All you need is a box like this, and you will need some scissors. So what you're going to do with this box is, just one moment there. Okay, what you're going to do with this box is you're going to cut open one side, like so. And then, inside, I have attached 3 different shelves. So these shelves all have a hole cut inside of them. And what we're going to do is take a plant, which I've already started this one here, and you can put it in the bottom of your maze. And what you're going to see if your plant can do is navigate through the maze on its own. What you might notice as you do this experiment is the plant following the source of the light. And in order for this to work, you're going to have a door to close it. And I would recommend just taping that plant maze closed, because what you're going to want to do is be able to open it again so that you can water your plant, because that's going to be very important. So try this out at home. It's a really easy way to see how plants respond to light. Okay. Now, of course, with more sunlight often comes more heat. And plants have a special adaptation that lets them regulate their source, how much heat they are taking in and releasing. They have special structures called stomata. You say stomata, I say stomata. Now, these stomata actually form another important function. They are what takes in the carbon dioxide and releases the oxygen. But just like you and me, plants can use them to cool down a little bit, so they can release water vapor as well. Let me show you what this looks like under a microscope. It's going to be a little tricky to see, but there's actually small little structures you can see. Let me see. Let me get that up on the television for you. All right, here we go. So what I have under the microscope right now is just a blade of grass. And you can see as I pull that up there, very nice. you've got these parallel lines on the blade of grass. Grass is a vascular plant, which means it likes to breathe in that air, it takes in that water, and in this case, its structures are arranged in parallel. They're all going very, very straight. That might look very different than, say, a leaf, where it's all kind of branching out in a fractal pattern. So if you look closely, you can see some of those little darker spots that are kind of like little squished jelly beans, and those are the stomata. They're a little harder to see right now because I picked them early this morning. And I'll show you a leaf as well. Early in the morning, many plants close their stomata to conserve their heat and energy at night, and then they open them as the day heats up. So let's move over to a leaf, and you can see that a little bit as well. And I want you to think about, if plants do this during the day and night, how might they also do this during the winter? How might plants have evolved adaptations to help them survive the more drastic changes of seasons than you would experience in just that day-night cycle? Okay, so here we have a leaf, and you can see some of the plant cells there, and some of those little darker bits are the stomata. And you can see that unlike the grass, this is not in parallel. It's all kind of all over the place, hodgepodge, fractaling out. Okay. And I mentioned a little bit about adaptations. So think about the difference when we're looking at the globe here. Our plants, even as the Earth spins and tilts, still gets pretty much the same amount of light. It has much less variation than somewhere in like the more northern reaches or more southern reaches at the poles. So plants, for example, in the boreal forest, which is a big forest in the Arctic Circle, full of different conifers and other trees like that, actually have an adaptation where they can go into a period of dormancy. It's kind of like hibernation. They can slow down all of their chemical processes and sort of just go into a freeze and then wake up again when they get the full sunlight of the summer. Plants in Florida don't need to have those adaptations. Our seasons are have much less variation in light. But we do have quite a lot of variation in water. So we have kind of more of a rainy season and a drier season than other states. So water is another very big factor in our plant growth. And let me show you here how the plants take up water through their stems. I took a little cross section of one of these flower stems here, so you can kind of see what it looks like inside. And they have two important structures. They have something called a xylem and a phloem. These are just two examples of structures that they've developed. And what they do is they kind of act like highways or rivers to transport important materials that the plant needs up through the stem. So the xylem transports water, and the phloem transports sugars. Okay. So I'm going to start kind of far out on this for you guys to see. And what I want you to notice is the outside of it. So I'll pull it up again for you. Make sure we're attached. Okay. Here we go, down the scope. Okay, so this is a cross section of a flower stem. And on the very outside, you can see all those little hairs, all those fuzzy little bits. And then directly attached to that is its epidermis, kind of like its skin. And then there's kind of these big bumps. Do you see? There's like one all the way on the right, all the way on the left, on the top. These are some of those big veiny highway structures that are transporting waters and sugars. And the phloem and the xylem are right around those. So I can't point to the screen and hold this at once, but I hope you can see that there. And the middle part, of course, is the pith. So the stem, of course, if you've listened to our flower dissection episode, you know, supports the structure of the plant.
but it also transports all of those nutrients. So it's very, very important for the water to get through. All right. And the water is able to go up through the stem using a process called capillary action. You might have noticed this if you ever maybe got an edge of cloth or a towel in a little bit of water and then it spread to the entire thing. That's capillary action as well. So we're going to show you a fun little activity that you can try at home using capillary action and seeing how the water is transported up the stem. You can use flowers. If you do use flowers, we recommend you use the white ones because they are going to absorb food coloring much better for our experiment. So you're going to take a cup and just add a little bit of water for your plant, just like you're putting your flowers in a vase. Okay, I have scissors somewhere. Here we go. And remember, when you cut flowers, maybe your family has told you that a good way to do it is to cut diagonally on the flower. Do you know why that might be a good idea? Well, let me show you. If I cut directly on the stem, maybe you can see that, it's a little small. You have this very small circle that the water can get through. But if you cut it at a diagonal like this, you have a much bigger surface area for the water to kind of soak up. Normally roots help plants do this, but we're trying to give it as much of an advantage as we can since we've already trimmed the flowers. Okay, so you're going to put your flower in this cup, and then you're going to add food coloring. So you can do whatever color you like. I will recommend that the darker colors work better. So if you use red or blue, those are going to be better options than, say, a yellow or maybe a green. And of course, you can always mix the colors to make what you want. If you want a purple flower, go ahead and mix some blue and red together. As you can see, I have done just that behind me. Kind of did a nice little rainbow here for Pride Month. So we've got red and orange and yellow and green and blue and purple. And I made all of those only using these 4 food dyes. So, okay, I'm going to use blue. I'll put some of that. You want to add a lot of food coloring. If you don't, it's not really gonna soak up as much as the water. So definitely don't be shy. Be generous with how much food coloring you're putting in there. Give it a little stir. There we go. All right, now, once you do that, you're going to want to wait at least 24 hours. These flowers have been sitting for several hours already, and you can see we've gotten some red for this one right in the middle of the stem, but the whole flower isn't red yet. And you can see maybe the blues and the greens have a little bit there as well. So it's just kind of starting, and they've been sitting there for hours. So this is going to be an experiment that you're going to probably want to do and let wait overnight. Okay, but if you have difficulty finding white flowers, these ones I got from the store. This one I just found outside on one of the bushes. You don't have to use flowers. All plants use capillary action. And an excellent example of this, because it has such a high water content, is celery. So maybe you don't have flowers, but maybe you have some celery in your fridge. This is another really good option. So you can, again, add some water. How about this time we do some blue? All right. Oh, I already did blue. That's okay. I'll add some red. And then it'll be a nice purple color. Yeah. Mix that up. And then you'll just take your celery stalk. And I've already trimmed these, so you can just put them right in there. And it'll start soaking up all of that dye. You can already see that the celery is pretty thirsty and taking some up. And celery actually works a little faster than the flowers. I've had the celery sitting for the exact same amount of time as the flowers. And you can see that it is quite red. Very, very red. Okay. So fantastic. So again, do you remember the 3 main factors I told you that can affect plant growth? That's right. We said that plants are extremely affected by light, by water, and by heat. So it's important to control those factors when you are growing plants. And as we know, all 3 of those factors are extremely impacted by seasons. So our rainy season and our dry season in Florida, for example, or winter in somewhere like Maine versus winter in Florida. All of these different factors are going to affect what kind of adaptations plants need to grow and how they have their life cycle. So when they start to sprout versus when they might fade away or have a fall. We in Florida, of course, in Tampa specifically, we are in growing zone 10, or in some places further north, it's growing zone 9. So the USDA actually has a system to help tell you when you should plant different kinds of plants and what plants are going to do best. So I definitely recommend checking that out if you are looking to start your own garden. Thanks for joining us, and as always, keep discovering.